Shall we? On the boat? Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Commercial fishing.
Oh, wow. That's a story for another time, I think. Sounds interesting. Okay, we're at 6:32, calling to order the Clark County Clean Water Commission meeting for February 1st. We'll begin with the call to order. Brendan Addis, I believe, is not going to be here. I don't see Brendan. I don't see him online. Me, Matthew Jones, present. Ted Gaethje.
Present.
And Alice, are we going to do introductions afterwards, or should we?
However you would like.
Well, let's just quickly just do Roger Haig. Howie, sorry.
Yep. No
worries. And Jeff, was it Kucinich? Jeff Kucinich, is that right? Kesnick. Kesnick. I'm sorry, Jeff. I know I hate doing that.
I did it wrong too.
Kesnick. Say it 3 times. It's still. Sandra Martin Bowe.
Sandra Martin Bain. Present.
I'm fired. Kate Perkins.
Here.
She's
Oops,
there.
here.
Okay, did I at least get that one right? Name, Josh
Yep,
Seeds.
you did great.
Thank you, Josh Seeds. I see online.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just trying to think of some way to mispronounce my own last name to try to make you feel bad.
Yeah, Robert Trost.
Present.
Trost, I should say Trost. You know, I know, I should say Trost since I'm getting everybody else's name wrong. Okay. Okay, should we do introductions, or do we want to take care of the business first, or?
Might as well do introductions.
Yeah, I think let's do introductions real quick. I guess I'll start since I'm talking. I'm Matt Jones. This is the beginning of my second term, currently serving as the vice chair last year, and I guess for right now as I'm speaking, serving as the vice chair representing the East Fork Lewis River watershed. Ted, you're next on the list. How about?
This is my first meeting other than the orientation last week. I live in the Burnt Ridge Creek area, actually just stone's throw from the creek itself, so I use it a lot for hiking and walking and biking. My background is I was a Vancouver City attorney for way too long, a couple of decades. And since then I've gotten really interested in water quality issues, working with the Watershed Alliance of Southwest Washington. I chaired the body for a few years, and then most recently Friends of Vancouver Lake, our efforts to try to do something about the water quality in the lake. And I've worked on the project with different partners through the Watershed Alliance out on the East Fork of the Lewis, Washougal, Manley Creek, a bunch of different areas, so I think a fairly broad geographic knowledge of the county, and I look forward to serving on this board.
Welcome, welcome. Sandra, I guess we'll just go around the table.
Sandra Martin Bain. I've been on for, it's kind of hard to tell because I was finishing out sort of someone's term, and then so I think I'm starting the second year, is that right? Looking to Alice, keep my memory. Yeah. Professionally, I'm the Director of Business Intelligence and Project Management for CTRAN. In that work, primarily on the project management side, I do a lot with our MPDES permit and SEPA-NEPA and a lot of construction. So right now, if you've driven by the 65th campus, you'll see a whole lot of heavy construction going on over there, and that's my project. On the personal side, I live right next to the Flume Creek tributary up in Richfield, out in the country. My husband and I have a small farm out there that's been in family for 50 years. In our spare time, we like to spend as much time as possible on the river as well as out in the ocean. So we do deep sea fishing, Alaska, Canada, et cetera. So very interested in keeping our waters clean, one for the food supply, but also for our environment and for our children and grandchildren.
Great, thank you. Okay, maybe we'll switch to, well, Alice, I shouldn't skip over you because you're an important part of this conversation.
Kate and Josh, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Alice Millward, I am excellent. The staff liaison for the commission. I'm program assistant for the Clean Water Division. Been here about 4.5 years, and prior to that, I was a business analyst for Cowlitz County and served 14 years as a judicial assistant for Superior Court,
and before that, lots of other fun jobs. Done a lot, community service-wise, and Cowlitz-Waukiakum Legal Aid. I've been the chair for the Cowlitz Parks and Rec and Trails Board, Advisory Board for, I think, going on 10 years. I've been, I think, a part of it since 2010, so been a while. And I think that's about it. And then I've been doing quite a bit lately this winter, helping out with the severe weather shelter for the unhoused up in the Cowlitz area.
Thank you, Alice. All right, Kate, maybe go with you next, please.
Great, yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Kate Perkins. I was a graduate of WSUV. I got my undergrad degree there. I did research in Lacamas Lake. And then I went on to get my master's at the University of Montana. And currently I do a lot of work in the Klamath Basin, and I do a lot of like water quality data analyst work. So I work for the tribes in the Klamath Basin, working on things like phytoplankton blooms and water temperature issues, water quantity issues, and doing a lot of environmental research and data analysis for projects in that region. And so currently I live really close to where I grew up, which is on the Lewis River. I'm currently in the Pup Creek watershed, part of the larger Lewis River watershed. So I'm happy to say I moved back in 2021 from Montana, and happy to be back. I worked for Clark County when I was getting my undergraduate degree. I worked as a clean water assistant, which was really great. And so I wanted to look for a way to re-engage. When I was living here before, I volunteered a lot, and so post-COVID, really looking for a way to re-engage with the community and get back out there and get involved in clean water in Clark County.
Fantastic, thank you, welcome. Josh, maybe you could go next, please?
Yeah, and I'll start by apologizing for the delay. I'm on satellite internet, so there's always a pause between when I start speaking and you start hearing. So I'm not actually as rude as it might seem. So my name is Josh Seeds. I've been on the Clean Water Commission for a few years. I'm in my second term. I am also a former student at WSU Vancouver. That's where I got my master's in environmental science. And I got my bachelor's in biochemistry from WSU in Pullman. Among other jobs, for the last 15 years, I've worked for Oregon's Department of Environmental Quality in the Water Quality Division, doing work around water pollution prevention and drinking water protection, in particular with forestry and agriculture and toxic substances. Yeah, I think that about covers it for me. I am currently supposed to be running the research subcommittee, so if anyone's interested in belonging to that, I'd be happy to talk to you, or we can cover it later during those updates. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Jeff.
Hi, Jeff Kesnick. This is my second year on the Clean Water Commission. My background, mostly nothing to do with this, 30 years engineering computer chip technology, and I dabbled with teaching GIS and tutoring math for a number of years. Right now I'm not working, trying to stay that way.
By choice.
By choice.
That's a good important piece.
And that's something I'm looking for something to come along, but it hasn't, so I'm spending most of my time volunteering. I also serve on the City of Vancouver Urban Forestry Commission, starting middle of this year. And I do a lot of volunteering for the city, the county, and just pretty much every nonprofit in Southwest Washington, planting trees, pruning trees, sticking willows in the mud. It's been a recent activity, and litter patrol for the city. So my pet peeve lately is cigarette butts.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Brent.
Yeah,
tell us who you are.
I'm Brent Davis. I'm the interim Clean Water Division Manager. I'm on lease from the Department of Community Development. My normal job is managing the Wetland and Habitat Review Program, and I'm also the county's shoreline administrator, so I deal with all the shoreline management issues that come in for folks that are applying for shoreline permits and that sort of thing. And, yeah, so I've been with the county for 23.5 years now, so I'm in it for the long haul at this point.
Yeah, great, thank you. Eric?
Yes, I'm Eric Lambert. I'm the Clean Water Outreach Specialist in Public Works. Up until about 5 or 6 months ago, I think now, I was right in Clean Water. Now I'm in the Community Engagement and Inclusion team of Public Works, still doing all the same work to support the MPDS permit in education outreach area. I help lead Stormwater Partners in Southwest Washington. Some of you went to the symposium that we have each year. We also sit on the steering committee for the Clean Rivers Coalition, which is a Oregon statewide and Southwest Washington group that's doing some great work too.
Bob?
I'm Bob Trost, and like most of the people here, I've worn a lot of different hats throughout my career. My nexus probably to clean water is I was a member of the technical committee for the North American Waterfowl Management Plan, and I served as the U.S. co-chair on one of the subcommittees that dealt with Arctic geese. But I had a lot of dealings with wetlands conservation, and some of you may know some of the money that went into redoing Steigerwald comes from this program. What's new to me is working at the geographic scope of the county. I'm accustomed to national and international things. I was the lead author on a national environmental assessment, and so some of this is new to me to be focused down to the level that we are here. But I hope to be able to make some meaningful contributions. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Roger?
I'm Roger Hauge. I'm an old retired professor out of Eastern Washington University. I've worked in water quality things actually since I moved to Spokane. We had a problem with Spokane, Lake Spokane, in sewage dump, and it caused a bunch of problems, and we had to go out and fuss with all of the 11 dischargers, and we started all of the phosphate-free Washington, actually, now. It was county then. Here, I'm in retirement. I've taken the Lacamas watershed on, although I live in the Washougal watershed. And we've been monitoring the cyanobacteria that grow in Lacamas for the last 2 years. We're starting our third year. We're going into mid-lake monitoring full-time this year, and we're looking at the watershed itself and the creeks in the watershed to pull the water quality data out of them and the macroinvertebrates out of them and keep this thing going. Hopefully, we look out about 10 years because we want to see how all of the restoration effort that people like the city of Camas is doing, and Geosyntac, and it gets up into Vancouver and even the county. Most of it is in the county, and getting to know all the players and the people in the game and getting the data out of the water has been absolutely a great job. It's been fun.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, and especially warm welcome to Ted and Kate. We really look forward to working with you here on the commission. So our next agenda item is to approve the November 2nd, 2022 meeting summary minutes. If you've had a chance to look at those, are there any comments or changes?
I would move to approve with the exception of the notation that Maria should have been noted to have been present and that she acted to second a couple of the motions.
Okay, noted.
I'll second.
Second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay. Minutes are approved, passes unanimously. Next item is the January 25th, 2023 meeting summary. I have just a note on there that it's, just for the record, that I was not in attendance, but it's listed as being in 2025, which is in the future, so just a quick change to 2023. Any other comments? There are no comments. Is there a motion to approve?
Please approve. Motion.
Motion, is it Roger? Roger has a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Meeting minutes are approved. I have to slow down a little bit for our friends online. I know there's a delay. Try to be mindful of that. Okay, Alice, public comments submitted. I don't see any members of the public present in the room or online, but do we have any comments?
No, I checked actually at 6 o'clock and there were no comments.
Okay, all right. Then that is that. Then we'll move on to the Clean Water Division update. Interim Manager Brent Davis. Brent, do you have an update?
Yeah, just kind of a quick overview of I think it's more of a snapshot of kind of what we do at the beginning of every year. So before I get into that, though, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some recent reorganization decisions that occurred at the county and Public Works Department. I don't know if you were aware, but for about 7 or 8 months, there was a lot of uncertainty in the organization, the distinction between Public Works Director, County Engineer, and then we went for a period of time without a County Engineer, which is challenging. And we haven't had a Public Works Director since midsummer. So the new organization, the Office of the County Engineer is back to being combined with Public Works Director, but organizationally that doesn't necessarily have to be that way in the future. It's just currently that role is being filled by the same individual, and that's Ken Lader. He's been promoted to that position internally. He's been with Public Works for a number of years. And with that, they've split the Public Works organization into sort of 2 arms. One is the operational engineering, transportation, construction arm, which is where all the road design, transportation stuff, running all the signalization and all the safety, and then operations and maintenance and everything is on that side. And then on the other side is a more, not necessarily administrative side, but some administration as well as elements of the department that don't legally fall under the county engineer's purview, which is the Clean Water Division and the Parks and Lands Division. And both of those arms have a deputy, so there's a deputy county engineer under the county engineer, and there's currently a vacancy for a deputy Public Works Director. There will be some lateral roles between those 2 deputies, even though organizationally there's 2 arms. So Clean Water now knows where we live in the organization, which is good. So with that, the recruitment for a deputy director should be going out this week or next week. And then shortly after that, they should be moving forward on a recruitment for a permanent manager for the Clean Water Division.
And there's a deputy county engineer that oversees this arm where we live, right? Did I understand that?
No, we're under the deputy director.
Okay.
Right. So the deputy county engineer oversees all the design and construction and
Okay,
that stuff.
okay.
So,
Could I ask a question about how the commission relates to that organization? Are we actually under the county commissioners, or are we under the Public Works Department?
So with the charter, the relationship with commissions like this has changed. It's actually twofold. There is an element of being under the county council and being advisory to the county council on matters of policy. And then anything that falls under matters of administration would be advisory to the county manager. So the coordination lives in Public Works, but in terms of any recommendations that this commission makes, if it's administrative, it would be a recommendation to the county manager, and if it's policy oriented, it would be to the county council.
All right, thank you.
So is there an estimated timeline for a director for clean water to fill the position permanently that you're occupying?
I don't know if there's a
Guesstimate, or?
all I know at this point is that the decision's been made. They're not going to wait for the deputy director position to be filled and let that person handle the recruitment. There's some logical reasons to do that. The Public Works Director has decided that it's more important to get somebody in the position. So I suspect that effort is going to start as soon as they have an advertisement out for the deputy director. The challenge right now is recruitment for these kinds of management positions. The county's been trying to recruit several managers in the county engineering arm for months and not had much success in getting candidates. So I think it's really uncertain. It's just going to depend on the types of folks that apply for the position once it's advertised. If a good pool of candidates comes in quickly, it should be done, within a few months. But it could take a while to get that pool.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for answering. Anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to go over what we're actually working on right now. So one of the big things we do at the beginning of the year is the annual report to Ecology on our NPDES permit. So Rod is spearheading that, and he needs a lot of input from other departments and work that they do to support our program. As he mentioned in the training last week, it's a series of questions that have to be answered, most of them with numbers like how many erosion control inspections did you do last year, that sort of thing. So he compiles that, and sometime in March that gets sent up to Ecology. So that's something we can share with the commission when it's done. Jeff has been working on work plans for his team for the next year. And with that, on the infrastructure side, he's having to look at some prioritization because he's realized there's more to do than he has the resources to get done. We're also talking about trying to get approval for some temporary staffing for the summer season in both of his major program areas. We have a fund balance policy that's being reviewed by the county finance folks right now. So that's something that Public Works is trying to get for various enterprise funds. So that could be an important piece for us for planning in the future of how much we need to keep in our enterprise fund to be able to have the buffer we need for operations if for some reason revenue stream slows down unexpectedly, and then also how to deal with emergencies in areas of our responsibility. And I already talked about the recruitments for management, and then as my bandwidth is starting to open up because some things in my regular job.
Be careful what you say.
I'm starting to wind down. I'm looking at laying some groundwork for the eventual permanent manager on some strategic financial planning work to try and gather some data about, what our revenue has been over the last 10 years, what our expenses have been, how our expenses, starting to forecast how our expenses are changing over time and what that will look like in the future. And then also working with Jeff and Rod to really quantify, you know, how our workload and the things that we have to do to meet the permit, you know, translate to staff hours. So as we see the number of facilities, both public and private, increasing, and the number of inspections that we have to do because of that, you know, when do we need more staff to be able to meet the permit? How much time should we be spending on those inspections versus how much time we currently are because of our resources, those sorts of things. So we can start to tell our upper management and our council the story about what we need to do in the future to stay in compliance with the permit. You know, right now, I think that's a concern because we are, and I think you're well aware of this, we're pretty close to the limit of what we can do with our current staffing resources. And even where we use outside service providers, like for our maintenance and operations, those organizations are also at their limits. So, you know, we just need to get some better planning tools in place for that sort of thing.
That sounds great. I mean, sorry, Roger.
Let me ask this question. What major projects face you guys for this coming year that are outside, the real work, not the staff process? I know that's important, but what major projects do you have that are going to be taking place in this year?
Well, and, you know, in terms of capital projects, the big projects are multi-year scenarios. So the big one we're working on right now is the Heritage Farm wetland restoration. So that's not scheduled for construction until 2024. So right now a big push for this year on that is, and this should be happening this month hopefully, is getting the permit package into the agencies that have to approve the environmental permits, because that's kind of the bottleneck for being able to bid for construction. So we'll be going through that permit process, as well as coordinating with our engineering design folks to get a bid package together. We have a 65% design right now, so then there's a 90% step, and then from there it gets refined to a bid package. And so that's going to be a big push outside of our, you know, our normal operational work. We have some other capital projects. I don't have the list, so I can't say exactly what those are, but I know there are a number of other capital projects that will either be started or they're small enough they may be completed this year. But, you know, we're pretty consistent in terms of the amount of work we do every year in that realm. It's in the ballpark of about $3 million in expenditure.
Okay, of that $3 million, how much do you do yourself and how much is done through contractors?
So the Clean Water Program itself actually does mostly coordination and grant management. So we as service providers, we use our design construction group, so they provide the project management team. They provide most of the design is in-house. That's actually something Jeff is working on for our upcoming design projects is, you know, which of the projects we have on our plan, we may have to go to outside contractors for design. Most of the environmental permitting work, the general coordination of the permit package is done with a group in Public Works that does that work. But a lot of the technical analysis, like if you need a wetland delineation or you need something like that, we go to contractors for that work. And so it's a mix, but again, most of that work is not done by Clean Water Division staff. We rely on other folks and pay other folks at Public Works to do that work. So most of our work is routine, operational, other than, you know, coordinating for those projects and doing the planning for what projects are going to get done in the future. Yeah, so I mean, the monitoring is kind of the same every year. There's some,
Just different place.
different places. The inspections for the private facilities and for the, source control and that stuff is pretty much routine. And then the permit compliance stuff that Rod does is pretty routine.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It actually helps.
I'll refer to this as your workload planning effort. You plan to do that in-house? And do you see a role for the commission to play in that?
I do see a role for the commission. I'm not sure it's gonna be up to me ultimately, because it will be, I'll be handing this off to a permanent manager, however far I get before my time's up.
Yeah, we'll see in a couple of years.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but I'm holding my comments to let everybody else talk.
My director may pull the plug at some point as well, so, I think initially it's gonna be internal. It won't, I'll be relying on our business services group to provide a lot of the financial information, financial data, and Andrea and that group does our financial analysis work, so she'll be pretty key to that. But yeah, initially, in terms of building the models and such, we'll be doing that internally, and eventually we'll be vetting that with our auditor's office, our finance team in the auditor's office, as well as probably the budget staff. So, eventually we may get to a point where there's a decision that we need to get some outside expertise, but we're not. I think we need to lay a lot of groundwork before we can get to that point.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you're undergoing that effort of that planning, because my fear is, it kind of made jest of it a little bit, but since I've been here, we've always had an interim manager, except for a few months where we had a permanent position, but that was only for a few months, and here we are with an interim person. So I just fear something gets lost in the organization if we are
Second or third interim.
I don't know. I don't know, honestly, Roger, I don't.
I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think we've had 4 or 5 years of just caretaking and keeping the lights on.
Yeah. So I'm very pleased to hear that you're laying some of that groundwork. So, I'll speak for myself, but please let me know if there's anything I can do, and I'm sure there's other members here that would be more than happy to.
My plan is if I get to a point where we have some real substance to talk about, I'm planning on bringing it to the commission.
Thank you. That's great.
Asking for some input at that point, I think would be important.
Great. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Brent. Anything else?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you for the update. Eric, our education and outreach, and should I say also inclusion?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick update here. Let's see, at the end of last year, we wrapped up our Don't Trip and Drive grant that we were partnering with a number of the other cities through the Stormwater Partners, in addition to the Watershed Alliance, who was implementing a lot of that work, and we were able to pilot a number of interesting programs. One of them was trying workshops, and then the final workshop, we were able to pilot some higher levels of financial support to get leaks fixed, which throughout the whole program we had identified was one of the major barriers, if not the major barrier, to people with vehicle leaks getting their cars fixed. And so that was really neat, and will be a report coming out on that very shortly. We're in the process of renegotiating and updating our contract with the Certified Backyard Habitat Program, and so that's exciting. So we'll be continuing with that. We're planning the culminating event with the City of Vancouver for their Student Watershed Monitoring Network program, which we help fund. And then on some of the partnership side of things, the Follow the Water campaign, which is the public-facing campaign of the Clean Rivers Coalition, which I referred to earlier, has been doing really good, and we've been getting more and more recognition from the program. In fact, earlier this week I was interviewed for a radio show all the way down in Lawrence, Oregon. Thankfully, it was just a virtual interview. But that will be airing in a number of jurisdictions. It's a syndicated show through Pacifica Radio Network. Later this week, the show is syndicated up in Mount Vernon and Bellingham in Washington, so I'm going to be reaching out to our local Vancouver community radio station, and some folks in Portland will be reaching out to KBOO to try to get that show aired. We really just kind of talked about our opportunity to share a little bit about the Follow the Water campaign. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's followthewater.info. And it's really nice to be able to have that kind of public-facing, broad public awareness campaign, which we haven't really had a really quality type of campaign like that in a number of years. And then kind of piggybacking on that, one of the sponsors, or one of the things that the Follow Water campaign is sponsoring, in addition to the Lower Columbia Nature Network, which is a Clark County organization, is a program called Honoring Our Rivers, which I think it was kind of on a multi-year hiatus, and it's been brought back to life. And that's just an opportunity for students to, I think of all grades, to submit poetry or art or writing about rivers and watersheds. So it's an opportunity to for teachers to bring in some Common Core curriculum centered around watershed health and the arts, which I think is a really great synergy there and a great thing to see kind of come together. And on that as well, this year we are kind of in the beginning stages, and we'll be launching it hopefully by the end of this month, the next Students for Clean Water video contest, which will be another Stormwater Partners project. In previous years, the River Starts Here, which is the Portland Metro kind of campaign, also did the student video contest. They're not doing it this year, so we're going at it alone. But we're excited to do that again and be able to get videos, get students engaged in some things that they do really well, create videos and those multimedia energies that they have centered around issues related to water quality and things that people can do, things that people can do at home to help protect water quality, and then we'll have an opportunity to recognize those students publicly for the work that they've done. So I think that's all I've got. So I don't have any questions about. Of course, looking forward to this year having more in-person events. The Kids Fishing Derby is going to be taking place at Klein Line. Clark Public Utilities Earth Day Fest will be happening in Salmon Creek, and so more things like that this year.
I think it's been 4 years since the Fishing Derby. We used to have a presence there, right? Which I think was even before mine.
We were there at the very at the very end there, and boy, there's 10,000 people that go through there. It's a great opportunity to talk with people.
Is there anything more on the drip and drive? Is there going to be like a final report of how effective it was and so on?
Yes, I'm compiling the report now, and right now, my understanding is that the Watershed Alliance wants to continue the workshop aspect of it, and I think they have funding from some different sources to continue that. I don't know if they will also include that kind of higher level of reimbursement for leaks fixed, but they will be using some money from different sources, as far as I know, to continue that program. And it's been a nice partnership working with Cascadia Tech. They have an auto school out there, and it's kind of a neat partnership to get kids, the students involved with hands-on work, looking at people's cars. And I was able to attend a workshop on December 5th, which is the last one they did, and get a feel for kind of how that went. And I thought it went really well. It was nice to have the students doing that. I had some questions about how that would feel, but it felt pretty good. The students were very knowledgeable. There were a number of instructors, adult instructors around, and were also able to provide support, and the feedback from those workshops was really positive.
Great.
I think the Don't Drip the Dog program suffered from the pandemic as well, because you really couldn't get out and do the kind of outreach that was necessary to make a program successful like that. And the Department of Ecology money just frankly ran out too. I think that was grant money, if I recall.
Well, so they the Department of Ecology poured a lot of money into developing the Don't Drip and Drive program in the Puget Sound area. We took the work that they had done and applied for a local grant here to implement it in Clark County. But, you know, you were right. It was, you know, here we go. We spent 2 years building it up. We got 1 more year in the grant to go, and then everything stopped for like 2 years. And it was a challenge to kind of, you know, inflate those sales again and get the ship going, to be frank. And, you know, I think that now that we did that and we were able to, you know, move away from the leak check events, which was challenging. I will say the data about the effectiveness has been very challenging to gather. It relies on a lot of partners, particularly the auto shops that we are partnering with that had agreed to, you know, give a discount to people coming in, mentioning Don't Drip and Drive and getting their leaks fixed. The Watershed Alliance had a very challenging time getting the data back from the shops. And just, you can imagine, you know, they got a lot of other things that they're doing, not necessarily, you know, the Don't Drip and Drive program and recording all that data wasn't at the forefront. Believe it or not. Which was a nice thing about the workshops is that you did have more opportunity. There were some hiccups with the Watershed Alliance providing the surveys at the right time and getting that data back, which you'll be able to see in the report, and I've done my best to kind of explain that. But there was some information and some positive ones, particularly, you know, if you give reimbursements, people are much more likely to get the leaks fixed. So even when they had to pay more, even if
But we don't have data on that. We don't know how much more likely.
We don't know how much more likely. I mean, we did do a workshop first without, and then we did one after with. So that something tells a story.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it's a very small sample size.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions for Eric?
Okay, well,
Great, thank you.
thank you, and I will take off and let you
thank you.
continue your meeting.
Thank you. Staff liaison report, Alice, that's you.
I actually don't have much because Brett talked about most of the things I was thinking about with all the updates. So I'm just going to jump in on, I know it'll depend on officially approving the bylaws for moving forward if you still want to continue to have even months or if you want to go odd months. So I haven't finalized anything schedule-wise until the decision was made here. It was the last one that was approved at a minimum of 6 meetings, but then when they were going to happen would be up to this group to decide, because didn't feel like it was something that people, the past groups should be making decisions for this group. So, so I wanted to, I have a couple different ideas on spring and fall meetings, and
These are the non-required meetings?
Correct.
Okay.
So these are the ones that usually they're not required. They're usually what we've done traditionally, and please tell me how you'd like to run them, because we've done them as workshops where everybody spent time and worked on strategic planning and goal setting and things along those lines. We've also had them be very presentation heavy, so there was less during the rest of the meetings, so that we could have more people come in and talk. We cannot have them. I am hoping that this year we will be able to have, knock on wood, a field trip where we'll go out over to the east side. So I'm hoping to still have that happen. Whether you want to have that in addition to or instead of one of the meetings, because I've heard different ways of handling it. So a lot of different options. that I'm gonna throw at you. So I guess first is, do you want to have the spring and fall meetings,
Optional.
the optional?
Yeah, see, and I've attended all of them, I think. And I've always struggled with, I mean, they still regular meetings, so I kind of
Right.
struggled with the optional piece. And if it rose to the level of we needed to meet, then why aren't we having meetings?
It's
I know in the past.
bylaws, and so it was one of those things where.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story,
So,
right? Yeah, so.
So that's where we had to call it a special meeting, and.
Right,
But
I guess
the
I just struggled with it a little bit.
Right.
Maybe I'll leave it at that for now.
So we just have them as being our spring and fall.
Okay, looks like we got some other comments.
Yeah, it's in a way of an invitation, because, Lacamas Lake gets, rather horrid bloom, by September. And you've got 4 to 5 to sometimes even 6 species of cyanobacteria that are blooming. And we've got the microscopes to look at them, we've got water quality data, and you can actually see what's going on in, not only in the water, but what is going on with the whole Lacamas watershed. And if the commission wanted to see that as a model or as a workshop outing, that would be relatively easy to set up. But
What is that, and what month are you?
It'd be September,
Yeah.
the early fall.
I mean, that could be something, and we've talked about this in the past, where I'm not sure if this is logistically possible, especially given, open records and our requirements of having meetings off-site. At least it's light enough that time of year, I think.
Yeah.
What we've done, and because I also ran this when I was looking at this, I ran it by, Bill, Richardson, our, attorney, and what we can do. In the past, we've had, everybody take a van and went with the staff. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to do things now, still with the pandemic and everything else, and also dealing with some of the quorum issues. We would just publish it as a date, as a special meeting, and this is where we're going to be going, and we can have people kind of caravan together, and we're going to be at this place at this time. Okay, now we're all going to leave, and we're all going to go over here and take 2 or 3 cars, so everybody's separate. There won't be any business action taken or taken care of, and obviously staff will be there, so if there was for some reason, can't imagine there would be, but if there was for some reason, I'll be taking minutes and talking about it, so it's there, and we would can have somebody make sure to let me know or one of the staff know, because the managers and Eric, and they have cell phones that are county cell phones.
So it's possible, is what
Yeah,
it's, okay.
it's possible.
Okay,
Well,
So-
yeah,
and then- so
and
that's
you could-
also-
people just could meet there.
okay. Well, I was just thinking about
And
the legality.
you would have to do it,
yeah.
you would have to do it at a different time than our normal thing.
Right.
And it would have to be set up so you could meet 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And that's what we've done when we've done the field trips where, we all met like at 1 o'clock.
Well, it's an offer, and just throw it out on the table for
Okay.
discussion, because I know that it is quite possible to do, but it will take some planning on our part, and it will take some planning on these people, commission's part, to do it, to actually see what's going on, and to essentially get a brief on what's happened with the water, and you will be able to see at least 3 years of cycles, because we present them, of what happens over the year, because we take weekly samples from 3 littoral sites on the lake.
Okay.
As well as the mid-lake sample.
Thanks, Roger. Bob, you're,
Yeah, maybe to follow along a little bit along the same lines, I think it's become evident to most here that I've been kind of making a plug for the commission to be more proactive, to be actively involved in trying to get some constructive things done. And one of the other issues I've raised a couple of times that we used to refer to in the federal government anyway is sort of the silo mentality of how natural resources are dealt with, and the different political constituencies tend to stay within their own silo and they don't cross boundaries. And one of the things I guess I would like to see the commission become more active with is trying to cross those formal bridges, and be it Lacamas Lake or be it Vancouver Lake too, that I think would be good candidates for this. And I know there are a bunch of different working groups and a lot of people have their fingers in these pies, but as we discussed the last time when we were discussing Lacamas Lake, the drainage district is involved and is not a part or party to a lot of these kind of decisions. And what I would like to see at this, for example, a workshop on Lacamas Lake is not just us, but I would like to see all of the political enemies that have a finger in this pie actually present, hear the discussions from the other constituencies, hear the concerns, and see if we can't get the politics of this thing sort of all pointed in the same direction where people are trying to achieve the same goals. I could see having a couple special meetings specifically for places like that and to try to achieve those goals.
it seems like recognizing the complexity that it would almost have to be where we pick one a year to plan it out first, just with all that, the actors, and then trying to organize it, and then trying to actually accomplish something.
That would be fine. I may be overly ambitious.
Well, that's great too. I
feel
appreciate that,
before.
but it just, yeah, I'm just also trying to be pragmatic.
I don't think so. I mean, that's a meeting on Monday with the city manager for Camas, and I can sound him out if it is the idea that we do want to do this, because he would be very interested in having the commission come, whether or not we, you know.
Is this a new, did they find somebody?
Yeah.
They fired somebody?
Looks like she wants to say something.
Okay. I'm sorry, because Kate, yeah. Sorry, Kate. Go ahead, please.
Oh, no, I don't have a comment. You know, I was listening along. I do really agree. I was just sort of reading through some of the bylaws and documentation, you know, getting a feel for really what the purpose of the commission is and what types of projects we do undertake. But yeah, I do agree that I think being on the ground and knowing our community better and getting inspiration for ways that we can contribute would be really great. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. So it sounds, I mean, what I'm hearing so far is it sounds like there's support to continue these, whatever we call them, workshops, special sessions, addendums.
I think in that vein, it would be interesting to start to collect a list of ideas, because there are a number of ideas floating around, and with 2 of them a year. How do we prioritize them as a group is what we'd like to do this year, but continue to build the list for the next year as well and future years.
Yeah. But, and sort of I mean, I was thinking Kate stated it was just for me sort of that physical connectivity, getting away from the table and actually, I'll refer to it as being stream side. It doesn't have to be a stream, but you know, having that physical connection I think is important.
So clarification.
Yeah.
So we're talking about doing 2 field trips,
I don't know.
one being, or is it more of a?
I would stay away from, this is my personal opinion, field trip to me is more just, you know, you know, it sounds like it is more of a workshop where there's some participation in an outcome goal, and somebody stop me if I don't want to monopolize.
Right, in a workshop
Yes,
versus
yes.
absorbing.
Yes, thank you,
I would
Sandra,
agree with that.
yes. So is everybody okay with calling them workshops, or I don't like field trip.
I'm fine with that. I'm just.
Whatever they are.
Right. I am just keen on a broader constituency than just the commission. Whatever political entities are involved in the, whatever area we choose. And I'm not real picky about where we start either.
I would also recommend that we consider broadening beyond the political aspect and also include community in that. Or community organizations, particularly around the DEI efforts of engaging those groups as well would be really beneficial to the commission, I think.
Yeah, I have a question on that note. When it comes to these, what we're calling workshops that have happened in the past, do we bring in a lot of outside community members? You know, can it be sort of like a themed workshop where, you know, we're talking about involving community groups, having a representative, or would that turn it into too much of like a sort of business focused meeting?
Well, you know, Kate, I've been here, well, this is my 4th year, and I've never been on whatever one of these things are.
This is new, this is new animals, that's
Well, it used to be, I mean, when I first showed up, there was this talk about, we used to do field trips, and then COVID hit, and so just things didn't happen.
One sitting there waiting.
So I think this can be, you know, it can be anything we want within legal boundaries. I mean, we, you know, the commission, there's been a lot of changeover in the commission, so, you know, I think that's up to us to decide. You know, it sounds like there's support to do something. I think it's up to us to decide what it is, but as the more we're talking, as Sandra's bringing up some great points and about including community, that's where I just start thinking that, you know, maybe one a year can be, you know, I guess it depends how many people sign up and how many people are putting hours in to network to get people to actually show up to the workshop. And I just know it can be so challenging getting just the logistical.
So given that sort of perspective, would it make sense to have a March internal commission working effort to do the planning, to see who would be involved, to settle on what our subject is, and then with the goal of actually pulling this off in fall?
I mean, that sounds good to me, to brainstorming, like, what's gonna be our, case study, if you will, or project,
And I know I definitely would like to try and get Eric and the rest of the, community engagement, people.
Jeff will actually probably bite on this one. He will want to be part of it, because it gets into all of his monitoring efforts up in the creek.
But for the coordination and the logistics and reaching out and helping, I know that they've got a lot, they're very tuned in and can help us with that, so I want to make sure that we're involving the community engagement people here in the county.
That makes sense, and besides that, the different organizations within different government structures are gonna need lead time. It's not like you can call up, I don't know what.
And speaking for my nonprofit folks who do a lot of work and spend money, they're would like to probably have an invitation too.
Right. That's
the pieces just sort of keep. But I think your idea is great of maybe March, we have a brainstorming session, get some stuff on paper.
Okay.
And then issue our invitations and figure out who the players are going to be.
I mean, I'm personally open to if somebody has, I know, Roger, you have a pet project, that's great. I'm open to whoever's.
I'm in favor of, you know, this type of, whatever you want to call it. Workshop.
Okay. At least we can agree on that.
What's the anticipated or expected outcome? Is it to educate the community? Is it to bring together a consortium of people who are problem solvers for a particular issue like Clackamas Lake or Vancouver Lake? What are we ultimately striving for to have this kind of workshop?
I'm looking, well, in the back of my mind right now, I'm thinking Clackamas Lake, but I'm looking for better coordination between agencies, organizations, and private outfits to actually address the problem than is currently happening.
And this truly is the problem that I see as I work through all of these things, is that the county does not talk to Vancouver, they don't talk to Camas, and vice versa, and getting them all sitting in representative groups at one table and saying, oh, this is the problem, and here are the critters, and there's the microscope looking at them, and this is what they do, and this is why we have to come together and look at it across political boundaries as well as across geographical boundaries. That to me is pretty dang powerful.
I think, Ted, maybe what I was getting from Bob's comment was at the workshop in March, we would spend the time sort of going into greater detail, finding, okay, what is it we're going to do, and maybe the question is, what do we want to get out of it first? It sounds like there's a good base, but, I mean, this conversation will probably continue through the rest of the night. We'll never get to the remainder of the agenda. So I'm thinking, it sounds like there's interest in the workshop. So maybe that answers your first question, Alice. And somebody speak up if I'm misinterpreting something. And also that we would get this on the calendar to brainstorm and then some, whatever it is.
Right.
So,
Whatever the case is, whatever the thing is, or outcome. So we would, do you say March?
so is it like
No.
spring
But yeah,
planning,
that's-
fall
For the planning.
action? Yeah, right, spring Yeah. plan, fall we do?
Yeah.
Is that
So
kind of
that-
the concept?
Plan in the early spring and then execute in September.
Okay, all right. I've been doing a poor job managing online. Kate and Josh, any comments?
No, I think that's a wonderful idea. Yeah, I think the change in format of our conversation can really drive inspiration. And as we're talking about like sort of connecting these projects, and I just think like, what groups in the community can we reach out to who might have sort of a representative that can be there. So yeah, it'll be great to have these meetings and continue forming a plan for how they can be effective for what we're trying to do.
Okay, all right, okay. Thanks, Kate. And for the record, I saw the thumbs up emoji from Josh online. Alice, did it?
Yes, and I will send out an email tomorrow or first part next week, and I'll check what other the engagement people's schedules are and rooms for March, and I will send out and ask dates that you're available. I assume we're going to be still picking a Wednesday, and I know we'll have to work around Josh's fire meetings, and then I don't know if anybody else has other Wednesday evening meetings that we need to work around, but I'll send out some dates, looking at March, and go from there.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good.
Does it have to be a Wednesday? I'm just exploring options for folks. I mean,
I guess it doesn't have to be.
Whatever works.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll get some ideas
All right.
and get some,
that just kind of constrains us, but there's only so many Wednesdays in March, yeah?
yeah, so I'll
Great.
coordinate and, get that out.
Thank you.
And then, and we'll set up for some time for doing the second one, the workshop for, in September. And then, since I'm gonna be putting on my little trainer hat from last week, since we didn't get to go over any of the, items, because we were running out of time, I just wanted, in your packet, and then I also emailed everything out, I gave you some information about the really, really, really old code from the original code from 1999 about how the commission was created, and we're working on getting that updated right now. So that's in process. And then you can see in the 2020 we adopted the mission, which is...
Alice, can we just back with the code? So the original 13.30A, the code that I referred to in the past, is So we're updating that,
Correct.
or you're updating that, or somebody's updating it, Brent's
We're
updating it.
going through, we're starting to have it go through the
Okay.
process.
Okay. And do we have a copy of a draft? Is there a draft, I guess?
There's not a draft yet.
There's not a draft yet,
It's-
okay.
We're just in the early stages of figuring out procedurally how we're going to do it.
Okay.
We may bundle it with updates that other departments are doing, or we may go it alone, and
Okay.
so we're still working on that piece of it. And then we'll get into drafts, and at some point we'll be having a conversation with council that I would hopefully engage the commission in as well.
Okay. Yeah, I know. We would like to know what we're gonna be tasked with doing under the new code.
I had a question, because when I was kind of studying the commission, I pulled this up off the county code, and I said, whoa, this is really constrained. I mean, and it's not even close to what our vision and mission says. It's just.
Yeah,
really-
and there's some history behind that.
Yeah, well, I know it's a Clean Water Act suit that.
Well, so when the commission was created, there were two things going on. One is we were new with permit, and at that time, the requirements of the permit, were much more open in terms of what had to be done for compliance. So there was a need for a body to provide some direction and some engagement with the community on what that direction should be. And there was also a lot of concern in the community about the fee that was funding the program. And so the commission was originally created to be, a sounding board for the community and to provide some guidance to the county commission on direction for those things. As time has moved on, the permit has become very prescriptive. There's very little flexibility in what we need to do and how we need to do it. And the fee has just kind of become commonplace. The issue now is that we don't update it frequently enough, and that's more of a revenue problem. And so there may be a role for the commission in the future when we go to discuss fee updates and fee increases with council. But unfortunately, nobody's gone back to the code and fixed it as things have evolved. And so that's something that needs to be done. In conjunction with that, if you look at the code on the fee, there's some issues there as well, because it specifies, it specifies things about the fee that are not practical or doable in terms of how we calculate and assess it. So, the other thing that's interesting about that Clean Water Code is there's some reporting requirements in there that are not achievable, in terms of like how money is spent by watershed, that sort of thing. That's just not how the permit works. It's not how the funding is allocated or tracked. So, there's a lot of things in that code that do need to be updated, and we need input from the council for that, because that policy advisory role, we need their direction as to what they want from you.
Do you envision that the code changes will encompass a more broad mission?
Yeah, I mean, my goal would be to propose a code that is much more flexible and open to interpretation and more dynamic in terms of allowing the commission to go in different directions, without having to go back and revise the code constantly. That would be my goal. Just, something that establishes what its basic purpose is, and, general outline of how it reports back to the council, that doesn't constrain what that looks like. If that helps.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Alice, for letting me take that
Yes, no,
side trip.
and that's why we do it, so that, and then, Clean Water Commission, the page with the mission, vision, and the core values, and the SWOT analysis, and some of the long-term goals, and the yearly objectives. I think the commission spent well over a year working on this. And then, of course, with meetings independently, it's been really, really hard since, we got it we're able to get it done. So, that's one of those things where, I'd like to see how we can try and move forward. Because, you know, the new mission, that, the commission created is very, you know, it's collaborate with the residents and the government entities and businesses and nonprofits to enhance water quality, improve flow, and protect the ecological integrity of our watersheds. And that's, you know, that's a really great role for this body. And
That's really what the September meeting is all about, is taking a look at that goal and showing how it works in reality.
yeah, well, that's, yeah, because it's kind of a boots on the ground, actually, application of your mission. And I think that's fantastic. So that is, and if anybody has any questions, I'm not gonna go, you're all adults, you can read it. But I just wanted to make sure you have that. And I'm sure you've all had a chance to read the bylaws. And, it goes over the aspects of a lot of the county policies. And the reason why some of those things are actually in the bylaws, and I don't know if we necessarily need to have them anymore, is that we have run into those issues, on the commission. Like we had to put nepotism in there just because we had a husband-wife team. You know, so there's some things like that going on, as well as, some people had, made some bad choices. And just being nice, and so working through those things. So please go online, look on the county website, you can find the policies from, that are there. And if you have any questions, let me know. OPMA, the Open Public Meetings Act, that is, I need to have Brendan, Matt, and,
For RCW, I'm stretching mine out to the 4-year mark, but I'll have it done.
okay.
Just in time.
I know. And, there's one other.
Thank you for the reminder.
So everybody said, well, and I have to do mine as well, so we're all in the same boat. So please, get those in. And then, Rod's been working on the stormwater management plan, and, we'll be getting that and, to help with that. Traditionally, I've helped, put that together. This year, Eric has got a really great idea. And he and his team are going to be working to make it a little bit more accessible and interactive with the general public, because it's a really long, pretty dry report, about, you know, the planning for the next upcoming year. So, that's something for you to look at and see, and we'll send it out. I'll email it. Please feel free to give comments, because that's some of the best comments we've gotten, and you can actually make comments throughout the year. So that's pretty much the guts of those aspects, so.
When is that coming out?
Probably, we'll publish it probably, I think, first part of March, February, sometime this month, first part of March. Trying to remember when that goes.
Good.
But definitely for the next meeting, or when we get it, and then you can just email and let us know if you have anything. You can always go online. The current one is on there.
Yeah.
And he takes those into consideration. So if you actually had comments that you would like to have, you could actually try and look at them and incorporate them into the upcoming one. So that's there. And that is pretty much all I've got for now. So short and sweet.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Alice. Next item, agenda number 5, unfinished business actions. We have environmental justice, connecting diversity, equity, and inclusion to the Clean Water Commission's mission. This has been a standing, seems like it's been a standing agenda item for unfinished business. Every agenda, we haven't really been able to accomplish anything with it, so I don't know if there are other thoughts on that. Been on there a year and a half, something like that.
We had a fantastic presentation that really kicked that off, and with so many new members.
Was that the one with Tanya? Is that the, okay, I'll be sure to pass that on, it was
There's
fantastic.
something we could do to kick it off again and reignite the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it's a very important topic, and I guess it's somewhat troubling to me that it sort of just stagnates, but so I'm looking to the group for counsel on, or opinions even. We don't have to, I guess, come up with anything concrete tonight, but maybe it might be just, it's still on the next agenda. Roger?
I think it's in the back of all of our minds. I mean, if you're a working professional, or even retired professional, you've had this whole process and problem and in your mind for years, no matter what you do. And yes, we all have to revitalize our opinions and our what's going on and all the rest of that, but it's something that's become a part of this now. And so having it on the agenda every month it's not going anywhere. And if we have something like a program on it, maybe we should fire that into one of our meetings that could, revitalize and start a discussion. But I mean, this is something that we live with now, all of us, no matter what we do.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Other thoughts or comments?
There was something in the October meeting from last year about this, and I think the comment came up about to kind of get traction and formalize it, do we maybe need a working group to focus a little bit better on it with a smaller group of the commission?
There was a period of time in which partnerships, given Eric's expanded role and so much more is being done with partnerships, of converting that group.
Yeah.
And incorporating, not abandoning partnerships, but incorporating environmental justice and community connection as it relates to DEI specifically, to give that group some focus.
Well,
that was one idea.
Yeah, I mean, and the bylaws allow us to create, correct me if I'm wrong, Alice, bylaws allow us to create groups, subgroups as we see fit, and they do not have to be the current three ones we have. So partnerships could go away and become environmental justice or yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that kind of maybe jumps ahead a little bit, but certainly connected to to our subgroups. So I mean, that's something I personally would be in favor of, seeing a subgroup of individuals willing to take this on, to move it forward, to get some traction and bring something to the table at each of our meetings that we can take concrete steps on.
I kind of see that as being necessary because with the whole.
That's a great idea.
It's just another agenda item.
Yeah.
We lightly touch and it just doesn't go.
I agree, yeah.
As you stated.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
maybe we table that until we get to working groups and revisit it.
Yeah, maybe, so it hasn't gone away for tonight, but we're gonna revisit it at working groups. Is everybody okay with that?
That's fine.
Okay, all right, I don't see anybody getting angry, so we can move on with that to new business. All right, here comes the fun stuff. The election of the 2023 chair and vice chair positions. So I believe in the past, we have had requested nominations and or volunteers. So there are two positions, chair. We should wait for Roger to get back, I suppose. This is important. Everything we've talked about is important, but this.
Maybe do one first, do chair first,
Oh, here,
and then do vice.
Here he is, okay. Roger, we're at the nomination, we're at the election of a chair and vice chair, which requires a nomination and or volunteering.
Why don't you volunteer to do it again?
I was gonna say, could I nominate the vice chair for chair?
Yeah.
A lot of head nodding.
You got it. You got it.
Well,
There's a nomination.
okay.
Because you want to take it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it depends who's gonna be the vice chair. Well, it sounds like there's a nomination for me, Matt Jones, right? Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, we have a second. Does anybody else want to volunteer or be nominated? Going back to my education days, leaving a long silence to make sure. I'm looking online, not seeing anything. Okay, we have to vote on that then, yeah?
Correct.
So I guess, all those in favor of Matt Jones becoming the chair for 2023?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Right, it passes. I am now the chair. Thank you very much for your consideration or hatred, I'm not sure. So, okay, vice chair.
I did the last one.
A chair needs a great vice chair. So, you know, I certainly have a number of nominations, but also it has to be somebody who has time, and that's an issue we've run into in the past with the chair and the vice chair not having time. So time, desire, interest in speaking with me. Is anybody interested in it? Or is somebody waiting to be nominated? Don't be shy, folks. If you're interested. No one? So how does that work if no one volunteers for the vice chair?
Sounds like somebody better just nominate.
Is that what
I'm not a member.
is that what
so I
we're waiting
can't.
for? Well, I'm making an assumption that Ted and Kate, you would probably rather not be nominated, but that's an assumption.
No,
Or would you rather jump in?
I think at least I'll speak for myself, I think I need a little more time on the board.
That's fair. I
before can
can
do that.
appreciate that. Kate, how do you feel?
Yeah, I feel like I am just dipping my toes in, but I gotta really submerge a little more before I can go there.
Okay, that's fair enough. Sandra, you said you do not have time.
I unfortunately do
Okay.
not have time.
That's fair.
I definitely have the interest, and I think I personally would value kind of shadowing you in a sense, because I think I would learn a tremendous amount from you. I unfortunately can't commit because of time.
Okay, well, thank you for the polite comments. I certainly appreciate those. Josh, I know in the past you said you've got some other things going which would not allow you to take such a position.
Yeah, that's still the case.
Okay, all right. So that leaves three gentlemen here, Jeff,
Yeah.
Bob, and Roger. Do any three of you, I'd be willing to nominate any three of you, but if you do not have time or desire.
But you, my wife would shoot me.
Oh, we can't have that.
I haven't got one of those. I can do
You don't have a wife? Okay. Okay, well, Jeff, are you nominating?
I
Yep.
thought Bob nominated himself for volunteer.
that. I'm willing.
Okay.
Willing to.
Okay, well, I will nominate Bob then as a vice chair.
I'll second it.
All right. Hey, Jeff, are you interested in
I'm still getting my feet.
all running? Okay, just want to make sure we're collaborative here. Okay, all those in favor of Bob becoming the vice chair for 2023? Aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
I'm going too fast. I'm waiting. I know, thank you. I'm waiting for so I heard some ayes. Those opposed? I'll wait. Those abstaining? All right. Passes that Bob Trost is now the vice chair for 2023. Fantastic. Yay.
Yeah.
Celebrate. Okay. Bylaw, now I can be absent from more meetings, knowing that Bob will be able to. bylaw amendment to change, meeting dates. Alice, can you fill me in here?
Look at the page that is the February 1st proposed changes. As I was going through the first change, and of course it's not in color, I'm so sorry, when I printed these out. On the general commission attendance aspects, I didn't get into anything other than the fact that I thought we should address that we should add video conference, because we only had somebody appearing by phone.
Okay.
So change 1 is the last sentence is attendance via video conference or telephone is acceptable and should be arranged with a staff liaison prior to the meeting instead of needs to be. We don't have the constraints that we did prior to the pandemic of
Okay.
that happening.
Yep. Okay. So that's the first change, yeah?
Correct.
And do we need to vote on each of these individually?
However
You're the chair.
Yeah.
If you want to do it individually, you can. If you want to do it all together, it depends on.
Let's go through and see what your other ones are. I think these, because I'm just perusing them, they look pretty basic, so.
And then.
Room change.
Yeah, change 2 is just the room
Yeah.
change.
Okay. Change 3 is on the next page, right?
Correct. And that's the one where it has a little bit more.
First one's for,
It shall have a minimum, so the insert was minimum of 6 times
okay,
per year, on the first Wednesday of the month.
okay,
And then adding, for example, and then crossing off January, March, May, June,
Mhm.
July, or no June in there. And then adding in the February, April, June, August, or October, and December. And then down in the last, and then the last sentence is sort of an example. Examples of a special meeting would be the new commissioner training or a field trip. And we could also add, if you wanted to, workshops. If that is something that you would.
okay.
Yeah, I would think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Maybe this might be, I'm getting too far deep into the weeds, Alice, but just on that one where you start the sentence, the regular meeting shall occur, I'm just going back to your change 1 where it says, under B, attendance, each member is expected to attend every regularly scheduled.
Correct.
If, just, for me, I would like to see just that exact same language in there to avoid any confusion. So the regular meeting could just be the regularly scheduled meeting, because that just brings up the question of, because it happens, we've had it before about having to give out the reminders about, okay, the optional meetings are, or the non-regularly scheduled, the same question I asked tonight. These are the ones where attendance is
Correct.
not counted against you. Am I
If you
making?
want to have it be the business.
Regularly scheduled.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Regularly scheduled
Okay.
is the.
I just wanted, I'm in the ramblings that I was, yeah, just for somebody like me, I like to look, it's, because I go back to, okay, what's defined as regularly scheduled if they mirror each other? Is everybody else okay with that? Okay.
Because well, the first part is regular meeting, a regular schedule, okay.
Yeah. I would just as a suggestion, I would just use that same language, just regularly scheduled CWC meeting, and just put that right over there, that the regularly scheduled CWC meeting shall occur 6 times per year on the first Wednesday of the month. Just so it's crystal clear.
Okay.
Thank you. Did we get through that before I cut you off? Did we get through all the?
And that was it.
Yes, we are. So we're going to look at them as a package, given the amendments. So is there a motion to approve the amendments to the bylaws as discussed?
I will move that the amendments be approved.
Second.
Roger seconds. Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those against? Any abstaining? Right, motion passes to approve, bylaws, amendments to bylaws. Okay, review and possible approval of 2022 annual report. Do we have a draft, Alice? Am I missing?
Did not print it.
Okay, was it in the email?
I think so.
I don't recall.
See it in your original email.
I didn't recall seeing it.
Neither did I.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just looking, I'm not strategic.
Old business.
I grabbed it. I am not, I've been so, this is crazy. I looked at all the emails.
Do we have a draft of it?
That part of it.
Put together?
Yeah,
Part.
yeah. I wanted to double check with you guys, with this because, one of the things when I was looking at the bylaws, was that, the annual report is significantly more complicated than technically what the bylaws say. And so if you do not want to have the list of all the agenda items in the report and all of the meeting dates and times and all the agenda in it and all that, we could just say it's there and have as attachments the agendas in the back.
Make it simple.
Right, I
And that would
prefer
be a lot simpler, and then I still am missing a lot of, people's education and outreach, or their training, their education, and their, community involvement. So that was another aspect that I had been running into.
And now, this is a personal opinion again here, I'm not sure we need that, because
It
I'm not,
doesn't necessarily need to be in there. I think it was something that
Yeah.
the community, I think it's traditionally been written by the, chair. And that was something.
well, since I've been here, but this is a good point of
No, that was
discussion.
something that I ended up kind of,
Alice has been taking sole responsibility for it, or at least
Yeah.
95%,
because,
since I've been here, last 3
Yeah.
years.
so it's one of those that, I got looking at it, and I think where it came from was part of the, potentially out of the code, where they wanted to show how the commission was engaged with the public.
Okay.
Whose don't you have? Do you have mine? You should, because that's basically what somebody has to fill it.
Well, I'm not submitting any because I'm not, this gets to my point that I really don't think the county manager, the commission, really is that interested in all the little things that I'm doing. I think their stronger interest is in the program and what the commission as a body is doing.
I think there's a distinction between, there are formal events that many of us attend, but there are also informal activities while we're out fishing along a bank, cleaning up what we see, or, there are activities that kind of run a range, and how granular do we get, and how much do we fill it in? And is it a formal event or an informal event, and does it add enough value to be worth the time and the space?
Exactly,
To the
yeah.
reader.
And our bylaws say the annual report will summarize discussion, actions, and recommendations.
So, and when I really got looking at it, I wanted to bring that up, but I had part of the draft. And then that helps.
And the other piece is that the report will also include a work plan for the upcoming year.
Right.
And in the past, I feel we've spent far too much time on the minutia of, I went to this 1 hour training and I went to this, and there really wasn't the work plan present. And the county commission typically asks us questions, the 3 that I've been to, or the 3 years, about things that really aren't in there, that other things that they're interested in related to clean water. So hopefully, Brent, at the presentation, we'll be there to answer those questions that go far beyond our technical knowledge
Well,
on many things.
I hope you two don't stab me, but I would like to move to have Alice and our chair table this and have Alice and the chair circulate a draft for our review and approval at our next meeting.
Oh, yeah. It would have to be,
Second.
Well, when is our next meeting?
that will be what you, I assume you guys decided.
That's April, yeah?
April, so it would be the first,
Well, then but our bylaws say that it has to be presented to the council in the first quarter.
well, is there another bylaw change?
What, yeah, and when does the council recognize a quarter ending? I assume the end of March.
End of March.
Okay, just, checking assumptions, but, Ted, you had a
I
question?
just had a question for Brent about the annual report. Is it part of the stormwater permitting process? Is that something that's,
It is not a requirement of our permit, the commission is not a requirement of our permit. So it's more, I mean, this is something that the council expects from every advisory board or commission, is an annual report that talks about what you did in the last year and what your plan is for the next year.
Okay.
But it's not specific to when that report be made.
First quarter,
It's
only in our bylaws, though.
well, the other group that I've worked with, the Development Engineering Advisory Board, does theirs in the first quarter as well.
And we
But they meet monthly, so their schedule is a little bit different, but
We have a special meeting in March. Why don't we just do it then, it's a bit.
When is our special meeting in March?
To be scheduled.
To be scheduled.
Oh, okay.
Sometime.
That's the TBD. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, and last year we were off, because we didn't get, actually, because of the way the council was being able to get in, we couldn't get in to actually present to them
Mhm.
until May, mid-May anyway.
Okay.
So it may be one of those things.
So can we, let's work on a draft quickly and then circulate that to the rest of the commission, and then we'll come back in March and to finish up any business related to that if we need to. Does that sound okay with everybody? And, I would, again, since we're just summarizing discussion, actions, and recommendations, I would, if somebody's not submitting, like me, then I wouldn't worry about it. People going back and looking through their calendars of all the little small things they did.
And that's what takes a long time.
It does.
Is to collate 9 individuals for every month with every date and all of the conferences and.
And the plans, the report becomes really hard to read because it's just like okay, great.
So
Do we have to vote on this then, that we're tabling it, or
No.
are we
it's
okay?
just-
Because we're not approving anything,
No.
yes? Okay, excellent, easy, okay.
Because I wasn't sure what you guys, if you would go for it. I was hoping you'd say yes.
Okay.
So that's how I did it.
Yeah, and I
was really hoping that was the way when I got looking at it. I was like, oh, this is really.
and maybe moving forward with that, I would propose that some of that burden be taken off of you for lots of different reasons. We certainly would look for your assistance still, but
I think
I'm a volunteering Bob.
In truth, that might not be a bad thing, even though I'm not particularly anxious, but the vice chair could take on the role of helping draft the annual report for the.
Oh, even better, this just gets better and better.
But this one, I think it falls to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just thinking in the future so that, we're not, at the, in February scrambling again.
Yeah,
Just because we've had a lot of changeover and things have changed,
This year will definitely be, next year will be different because of having the training.
Yes.
We will
Okay.
consolidate it in January and having business meetings starting in February.
Okay, all right. Okay, fantastic. Okay, moving on to our work groups. So we have overview of the work groups, determine assignments. Typically in our first meeting of the year, we determine assignments to those. Assign group leads, so there's a lead individual, or has been, I should say, for each subgroup. Currently, we have outreach and education, partnerships, and research. As I mentioned earlier, the bylaws say we don't have to have subgroups, but we can establish them as needed. So, I would throw out for the group, this might be a good time to discuss what we actually need, what we need to get accomplished. This is circling back to DEI, as well. We haven't, I guess over the last couple of years, haven't got a lot of traction with the subgroups. That's not to say people haven't been working, because I know they certainly have been, but maybe we want to reorganize, collapse, get rid of.
I'd like to see some goals and objectives for having work groups, and what the work groups set up as their goals and objectives, and so they would have a process to follow, and they would have something. They would have the goals that they were going to meet,
Yeah.
and let everybody know what they are. And so they'd say, well, how is this going on in your research committee? Does that make any sense, or is that being a little bit too
Well, I think that's certainly,
easy?
no, I think that's certainly one approach that we could use. You know, that in my opinion, they've been rather ad hoc up to this point. People have just been, you know, as an idea comes up, it gets sent out to some group. Doesn't necessarily align with that, what that group's name is. I guess coming into this, I would have suggested eliminating the groups and establishing subgroups as we tackle specific issues. That's just, like, for example, environmental justice could become, and I can certainly see an argument that being a subgroup of 4 individuals. I think we're a maximum of 4 is the bylaws, Alice, right? For a subgroup, but
Yeah,
I'm also,
4,
I would say another, yeah.
We
It-
just have to publish it and
Yeah.
take minutes and stuff.
It just, I don't know, Josh, maybe hear from you. You've been around here a long time and you lead one of the groups.
Yeah, so the reason for no more than 4 is simply because there's 9 members of the commission. And so if we want to meet and not have it be a public meeting that requires compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, we need to keep it to a limit of 4. I like the idea, and I'm sorry I can't tell who said it, of the larger commission sort of having some milestones or sideboards for, you know, kind of meeting or having some kind of schedule for getting work done. I know for the subgroups, I was going to broach the subject of someone else taking the lead on the research subgroup, because while I'm happy to participate between all my other obligations, including the East County Fire and Rescue Commission, it's been hard for me to stay on the ball about it and schedule meetings. But I think having defined check-in times or something to that effect, defined endpoints or goals for the work groups to create some accountability will certainly help someone like me with staying on it, because otherwise it's too easy to procrastinate meeting as a work group or working on projects as a work group, and then all of a sudden it's been 2 months and here's the next Clean Water Commission meeting.
So would everybody feel, I mean, how do people feel about eliminating the 3 groups as they stand and reforming groups as we see fit?
Based on a problem statement or a goal, or, I would say one thing that's intriguing about that idea is that there are, in the past, there have been discussions from other groups that would have been nice potentially to be a part of.
Yeah.
Right? But because it's a little bit fluid in the sense that we all have different interests or alignments or connections in the community. And I think your idea lends itself to potentially forming a group based on that to solve something, or it's an initiative of some kind.
Right.
I don't know exactly
Yeah,
what it might
that's
be.
what I'm thinking, yeah.
You said something that really key something here, because taking a look at problems in the county as far as water goes, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's in maintenance, whether it's in some biological problem, taking a look at those problems that come up and spending some concentrated time doing some research and digging into it and investigation into that. That to me is exciting. That tickles my funny bone, because that kind of a process it's engaging, and us kids need to be engaged when we do something, or we go off in left field and don't get anything done. So having your problem statement and coming up with those problems that we have here, and he's thinking about 6 of them right now. They're coming off the top of his head. Looking at those problems is pretty dynamite.
And,
Yeah,
you know, the word problem has a little bit of a negative connotation, right? So maybe we refer to them as initiatives or whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Words are words, right? But there's an action element to it instead of churning, right? There's some research to it, and there's some developing a work plan out of it, whether that's sharing with this group or engaging with other groups.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So, am I hearing to eliminate the 3 groups and establish groups, work groups, per the bylaws, as we see fit, given an initiative or something that, or a problem,
Maybe we
whatever?
could have, another brainstorming session where we
Something-
start to develop a list of what some of
Okay.
those are, whether it's around Lacamas or
Right,
Vancouver Lake or whatever that is.
strategic planning.
Environmental justice,
Yeah,
connecting the
yeah.
community.
So, I want to be,
Johnson.
Josh, yes, please.
Yeah, just so Bob Trost and Brendan Addis and I had gotten together last year, in the first half of the year, and put together as the research group a list of sort of provisional research problems, and had picked out one to do with stormwater that we wanted to start looking at. So if that's helpful, that's something I could email to the whole commission, or bring copies to hand out at our next meeting or something to that effect.
Okay.
And I think Bob has it, but we did sit down, come up with a list of issues, might be a good term, that we thought for some researching. So I'd be happy to share that.
Okay, yeah, that's great, Josh. Maybe if you could email that out to the whole group, just so it sits with us before we show up to the next meeting. I want to be, first of all, really clear. Is there anybody opposed to eliminating outreach and education, partnerships, and research as they stand now? And we can reform, and that would be my second question, but I guess.
Yeah, I guess I would ask, as a new member, what was the genesis of these original groups? Was it, they've been around as long as the commission's been around, or is there a history, or?
Well, for example, I did participate in one meeting of the research group last year. And it did have some merit, and I'm glad Josh has stepped forward and said he's gonna send some of that stuff around. But one of the subjects we discussed, and Josh was kind of taking the lead on, was a comparison. We were curious because there are 2 ways in which these bioswales are developed and maintained. One is that the county maintains ownership and maintenance obligations, and one is that the developers and the homeowners association does that. And the belief was that there's information out there that compares the effectiveness of those 2 approaches, and whether it's true or not, I don't know, and no one had the definitive data at hand. But the belief is that by turning over the responsibilities to the development companies and the homeowners association, the effect was much less. They were much less effective at reducing the problems associated with stormwater runoff. And the idea was to actually dig out the data that would support that, so that a policy recommendation could be made to either increase the monitoring of the non-county-owned ones, or to mandate that more of them be under the purview of the county. And to me, that's a worthwhile subject to take a look at. And it's probably true that there's a good deal of information somewhere on that, but it's not at our fingertips, and I don't know whether anybody in the division has some background information on that. But that is an example of one of the things that the research group was digging into, and I think that's an example of an issue that could be pursued.
So
but I don't think it's necessary we have a research working group to do that. I think what I heard here in the discussion from the others is that what we're more talking about is a focus area or an issue type addressing, and have groups do that. And I'd be all for that. I mean, having a specific name and trying to pigeonhole everything into these three particular things probably isn't the most effective and efficient way to do this.
Yeah.
Additions to the list I'd be interested in are also what would your team see as opportunities for us in this as well, right? So having you come back to the group with maybe your own list of ways that we can intersect or support.
Yeah, and I know what some of those things are conceptually, but I'm not in a position to kick any of that off for you yet. But yeah, as we get into like our budget proposal in the summer, I see a role for you in terms of supporting or advising our requests, you know, for additional staff, or other resources in the budget, and getting that input to the county manager and the budget team.
Okay.
One of the things that would be helpful to know is to know, okay, you've got this project and this project and this project, and you have only money to do 1.5 of those things. How do you set up priorities for which one you do, and how do you get the third one done that you need to be done anyway, even though it's not a high priority? And how do you set those priorities? Because setting those priorities is maybe something that this community could have a good role in, and I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if we've done that in the last year, because that to me is cool.
So this is going to require another bylaw change.
That's fine.
Do we do that here, or does that go to the next session?
You can do it here.
I'm looking at, on our bylaws that Alice has given us, on G, under work groups. You know, I think the first line still is great, may establish work groups at its discretion. We would have to eliminate, currently there are 3 standing work groups. This other information after it, which I'm not sure is completely accurate to my knowledge, about these groups have defined mission statements and annually established objectives.
Which is part of the reason why it's
I was the lead person for one of them, and that's news to me. So, so I think maybe just eliminating those 2 sentences, starting with currently there are 3 standing work groups, that discusses them, and that these groups have defined mission statements. And then on the next sentence, additionally, maybe remove additionally to where it just states the chair may create additional subcommittees of no more than 4. And that leaves us open. And then I think the concluding sentence here is right on target with what we're talking about. When the topic is completed, the chair shall then dissolve the subcommittee.
Right. Should there be a report provision? Because when you start fussing with a particular problem, issue, whatever you want to call it, you're going to reach some kind of conclusion. And even if the report is only a couple of paragraphs, having a report, actually puts a period to that thing, and it allows you to start the new one, and it gives a record of what was discussed. And I don't know if that should be codified in a.
Yeah, I don't know.
There is reference to a report in line 68. I don't know if that captures what your
Is it in time
subcommittee
frame
shall
which they
regularly report to the full commission on their
Yeah,
progress.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't, yeah, it says regularly report. It doesn't say what
But then the next-
modality that reporting will be.
And bring forth any item that needs to be acted
Yeah.
upon.
And I think as a body, when we, I mean, it depends upon the problem or the action. I mean, it might be
Maybe-
something that we want to discuss, report out as a group, or something that we codify or write down, or both. So
Yeah,
I think-
you're right, it depends on the problem.
I mean, the term report is in there, so maybe if we just leave.
Leave it alone.
So maybe just getting rid of those two sentences, and on line 66, removing additionally. Should we vote on this, Alice?
Sure.
In the interest of,
Is there a motion?
are we clear? Is everybody clear on the amendment?
Could you go over that one more time?
Yes, exactly, yeah. So we would, let me see here. Starting on line 62, I think, or is it 61? Thank you, yeah. So we would remove, starting with currently, currently there are 3 standing work groups: the Community Outreach and Education Group, the Research Group, and the Partnership Group. Continuing, we would also remove, these ongoing work groups have defined mission statements and commission meetings, and annually established objectives will report to the Clean Water Commission during regular commission meetings and propose appropriate actions for the CWC as a whole to make. So those would be removed. Then on line 66, we would remove additionally and just capitalize the chair, or capitalize the T in the chair. Everything would remain as is. Is that clear to everybody? Is that, I know, kind of rambled a little bit about that. So we would just remove those items to remove the groups as they stand, and the whole language about mission objectives for the groups, and leave it open to us creating groups that are task or issue specific. Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right, lots of bylaw changes. It passes with the amendments. Okay, so then that gets to, I don't know if we want to do it this evening or table it to talk about what those other groups are. We've already decided about environmental justice. I shouldn't say we have decided, but it sounds like we have. And assign members, volunteers.
Are we simply taking from now and saying, okay, now we're going to formulate some of these problems like environmental justice and come back in March and say, okay, these are the things we're going to do, who's going to do them, and go for there.
We could table it, yeah.
To me, yeah, because that's,
It gives us an opportunity to build the list, because it sounds like Josh is gonna send out the list, and there are other ideas floating
Okay.
around. Maybe we all
yeah.
bring
Okay.
that to the next
Okay.
meeting.
I think that would be
Yeah.
a very good brainstorm add to the agenda.
That would be good too, and also along those lines, Brendan is not here, and I do not want the Chinese Creek name, team, and project to be lost in this, because he's not here. There's been a lot of work on that. There's been tremendous amount of community involvement, so that might be certainly something that goes forward under its own specific initiative subgroup, but I can't comment on that because Brendan is not here. That's his project.
I waited in it just the other day, and it's still there.
Okay. Great kid. Okay, so it sounds like we're gonna come back in March at our special meeting, and that'll be one of the items on the agenda. Work group, I don't know, what do we wanna call it?
Delineation.
Delineate, that's the word I was thinking of. I thought there was a better one.
and if everybody could send me their list, that way I can actually compile them all together
Yeah.
and send them out.
Yeah, if you could get those to Alice as soon as possible so that, she can send them out to the group and we can. Okay, whew. Roundtable discussion.
I think we've done a lot.
Square table.
Okay, it's square table discussion. Okay, is there, before we adjourn, is there anything anybody, including those online, make sure you're not lost here, is anything anybody wants to bring up for the good of the order?
Gonna have to get you a gavel.
There used to be one.
I know. Somebody has moved my box.
Okay. All right then, the agenda has been completed in its entirety, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, everybody online, Josh, Kate, look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.